At the age of 58, he inquired whether I found happiness. What was truly peculiar was not the inquiry itself. The stillness that ensued was palpable. After 35 years of marriage, I came to the unsettling realization that I lacked an answer. Not an authentic one. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Carolyn. I have shared my life with David since the age of 23. He possesses an unwavering sense of reliability. Unwavering. On Saturdays, he takes to the lawn with his mower. Always remembers my birthday. The porch light is always aglow, welcoming me home after my late-night book club gatherings. And I suppose to the outside world, that's the visage of love after 3 decades. Yet recently our home has been enveloped in a gentle void. We engage in conversation. We partake in shared meals. Yet we cease to truly perceive one another somewhere amid mortgage obligations and adult children who no longer required our care. A cream-colored envelope bore the invitation within, celebrating the class of 1983, a 40-year reunion of high school memories. I nearly chose to stay away. I mentioned to David that I might forgo it. He gave a nonchalant shrug, declared, "Completely your choice." He refrained from inquiring about my moment of hesitation. I did not offer my services. We had mastered the art, offering just the right amount to maintain civility. Yet a pull persisted, a tiny yet unwavering presence, a murmur from a forgotten corner of my being, long silenced by the passage of time. Thus I acquiesced. The gathering took place at the familiar country club, nestled on the outskirts of town. Identical chandeliers, identical clumsy name tags, identical inexpensive wine served in genuine glasses. And then I beheld him, Jack Davis. The sound of that name had not graced my ears in almost 4 decades. He was the one who came first in my life. The inaugural kiss, the initial pang of heartbreak, the first boy who penned a letter to me in class, causing my hands to tremble as I unfolded it. There he stood across the room, aged and touched by gray, yet unmistakably Jack. As he smiled, my knees recalled the sweetness of being 16. We conversed as if we had once shared a bond, still savoring the memory of what it had been. We exchanged light-hearted banter about our former teachers, reminiscing about cherished tales of grandchildren and the poignant memories of those we've lost. And then, as the night began to fade, he inched a bit nearer and asked, "Are you happy, Carolyn?" Just as simple as that. Gentle, laid back, non-intrusive, yet utterly devastating. For just a fleeting moment, I lost the ability to articulate. Sleep eluded me that night. David inquired about the outcome. "Nice," I said, filled with a sense of longing for the past. After brushing my teeth, I extinguished the light, preempting any further questions he might have had. Yet in the shadows, Jack's voice lingered in my mind, not due to its allure. Yet it had uncovered a part of me that had long since retreated into quietude. Joyful. Was I? I was unaware. And that filled me with a fear greater than anything else. As dawn broke, I found myself immersed in a collection of old photographs. My high school days, crimson tresses cascading down, laughing with every part of my being. I gazed intently at that girl, and I pondered what her thoughts would be on the woman I had transformed into. Would she feel a sense of pride? Would she feel astonished? Would she inquire of me as well, "Are you truly content?" Uncertainty lingered within me, a hesitation to uncover her response. Jack remained silent, making no requests. He remained still. There was no necessity for him to do so. He merely raised a mirror and posed a single question. And somehow, that was sufficient to shatter a stillness I had misinterpreted as tranquility. At times, the most subtle choices resonate with profound impact in the future. A freshly opened inbox. A cursor blinked steadily. It was truly a pleasure to see you. That was all it required to set in motion a course I could never reverse. 3 days following the reunion, I received the email. Subject line: a brief message from a familiar face. It was brief, contemplative. Take your time. Keep it strictly professional. Jack expressed his gratitude for our conversation. He remarked that it brought back memories of his former self, of the sheer joy that accompanied laughter, unburdened by any facade. And at the bottom he inscribed, "No expectations. I simply wish to express my gratitude For hours I found myself lost in its depths. It remained untouched. Then it was open once more. Once more. It may resonate in a different way upon the third or fourth reading. It never came to pass. Yet I did. My fingers lingered just above the keyboard, poised for the first stroke. I wrote, erased, and wrote once more. At last I penned, "It was lovely seeing you too. It has been ages since I last laughed in such a way." I pressed the send button, and just like that, I found myself no longer merely a married woman. I found myself a woman, poised in anticipation of another's response. We began to craft our words nearly every day. Nothing particularly dramatic. Only echoes of the past. Literary treasures that captured our hearts. Melodies that had faded from our memories over the years. He mentioned that he had picked up the guitar once more. He was discovering the art of preparing Thai cuisine. He inquired about what had recently ignited a sense of vitality within me. And I confessed to him my uncertainty. Yet, I found myself longing to grasp the answer to that question. He penned, "You once dabbled in poetry, didn't you?" A smile graced my lips. For 2 decades I had kept that to myself. The transition arrived devoid of any playful banter. It arrived wrapped in a sense of the known. He recalled the flower that held my heart. He inquired about my father, unaware that he had departed 5 years prior. Upon sharing my thoughts with him, he responded with a quiet sincerity, "I'm sorry. I have always held a fondness for him." And somehow, I found myself shedding more tears than I did during the actual funeral. For the simple reason that someone had recalled a detail about my existence. Not the spouse. Not the mother. Certainly not the woman from the book club. Only I. I began to extend my nights, informing David that I had some paperwork to attend to, or perhaps a program I was viewing. He remained silent. He seldom did. I lingered in the shadows, alone with the illuminating essence of Jack's words. We were not engaged in any form of sexting. No photos were being sent. Yet with each line, he was revealing me in a manner that had not been done in years. And I allowed him to do so. For the first time, it seemed as though someone was truly paying attention. On certain evenings, I would shut my laptop and gaze at the ceiling for what felt like an eternity. Not out of remorse for David. Not at this moment. Yet, a sense of guilt lingered over the vibrancy of my existence. The sensation of being noticed once more was profoundly uplifting. And that particular joy, when it feels foreign to the life you inhabit, it begins to take on the weight of sin. One evening, Jack penned the words, "If we had remained united, do you believe we would have succeeded?" I hesitated before responding. The blinking cursor held my gaze, a relentless beacon, until my vision began to fade. Then I wrote, "We were too young. Yet now, perhaps." He responded, "Perhaps it's not too late to discover the truth." It was on that night when the tale truly unfolded. Not due to any arrangements we set in motion. Not due to the breaking of promises. Yet, for the first time in many years, I found myself not yearning for a way out. I found myself already halfway lost. In every woman's journey, there comes a moment when she gazes upon herself not as a partner, not as a nurturer, but merely as a form, facing the reflection and pondering, "Who am I when the world is silent?" This belonged to me. It began with an unassuming note. "I'll be passing through Chicago." Merely a single night. No pressure at all. I informed David of my plans to visit my sister. That statement held a measure of truth. She resided in close proximity. However, I would not be remaining with her. I traveled with minimal belongings. 2 gowns. A pair of heels that had remained untouched for years. Once there was a fragrance that captured my heart, a scent I cherished before the memories of my preferences faded away. Room 619. A hotel nestled in the heart of downtown. The hallway lay in silence. Lovely linens. Free from anticipation. That was the mantra I repeated to myself. I took a shower. I styled my hair with a blowout. As I donned the green silk dress that had remained untouched since my 40th birthday, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. It still fit, just barely. There I found myself, gazing into the mirror. And for the first time in decades I gazed. Refrained from inspecting for creases. Not to conceal imperfections. Yet in the quest to uncover her, the girl I once was, She remained present. Dim. Yet the act of breathing. Upon Jack's arrival, he rapped twice on the door. The door creaked open, revealing what lay beyond. His gaze met mine, truly met, and declared, "You are even more exquisite than I recall." A chuckle escaped my lips, not due to a lack of belief in him, yet a fragment of my being did. He pressed his lips gently against my cheek, clutched the instant as if it were fragile. Then they crossed the threshold and shut the door behind them. There was a silence between us that lingered for some time. He decanted the wine. "Play some gentle tunes, perhaps a soft melody from the 80s. He then inquired, "Is this what you desire?" I inclined my head in agreement. Yet the reality was, I was uncertain of my desires. All I understood was that a part of me had been dormant for an eternity. In that room with him it felt like awakening. His hands lacked urgency. They were filled with reverence. He caressed me as if recalling a distant place, one long untouched, softly, deliberately, with no expectations. As his lips brushed against my collarbone, I surrendered to the moment, closing my eyes and letting go of the names of my children, the sound of my husband's voice, and the grocery list that clung to the fridge. I recalled merely the sensation of being desired without any strings attached. We took our time. We removed each other's garments as if it were a holy ritual. It transcends the realm of physical intimacy. Yet, it is about the act of being perceived. Completely. With audacity. Unapologetically. And when he entered me, it wasn't desire. It was unveiled. As sorrow seeks breath. Tears streamed down my face. Silently. He refrained from inquiring about the reason. He embraced me as if he were someone who had always understood. We stirred from slumber, entwined, naked flesh against strange linens. He followed the curve of my shoulder with his fingers and murmured, "I don't want to complicate your life." I murmured, "It's too late." He let out a hearty laugh. Yet, deep down we understood that our words held a weight far beyond mere jest. Upon exiting the hotel, I caught a glimpse of myself in the elevator's mirror. I gazed upon my reflection, not with embarrassment but with awe. On that morning I failed to recognize a deceiver. I did not observe a wife. I beheld a woman who had at last returned to life. For the first time in years I found myself unable to look away. Each deception carries an expiration date. No matter the caution you exercise, no matter the steadiness of your hands as you conceal the truth, in the end it shatters. And the first to perceive its shattering was my husband. I returned home late in the evening. David had settled into bed, engrossed in the pages of the newspaper. He raised his gaze. "How is your sister?" he inquired. A smile graced my lips. "Weary. We primarily remained indoors." He gave a slight nod. Did not press. Yet, a certain depth remained in his gaze. Later that night, I found myself lying beside him, our backs deliberately apart, and for the first time in 35 years, an unsettling sense of estrangement washed over me in my own bed. Once more Jack and I crossed paths. Once more. In a moment that unfolded in Milwaukee. In a secluded cabin by the shimmering lake. It was not solely about intimacy. At times we simply engaged in conversation. Strolled. A silence shared. Imbued with the warmth of belonging. I began to share with David that I was participating in wellness retreats. Reuniting with cherished companions from my college days. And he had faith in me. For the simple reason that he desired to. For trusting me was woven into the narrative we had practiced for years. In that moment I let my guard down. In the quiet of the kitchen I found myself seated. My laptop is open. A message from Jack appeared, subtle yet intimate. Then David entered the room. He cast a fleeting glance. Stopped. And inquired, "Who is Jack?" A wave of panic washed over me. Dismissed it with a chuckle. Declared, "Oh, merely an acquaintance from the reunion. We have been corresponding regarding the class scrapbook." It happened in an instant. Fluid. Convincing. Yet, the moment lingered with an excruciating slowness. And as I raised my gaze, his eyes had shifted away from me. They gazed right through me. The days that followed carried an unmistakable shift. David still pressed his lips to mine at night, yet it felt as though he was kissing a door, one for which he had lost the key. He remained silent. Did not confront. Yet, he began to take solitary walks. Spent more time than expected at the grocery store. Ceased the melodic hum during the act of shaving. It felt as though the very fabric binding us was slowly coming apart, thread by thread, and neither of us dared to glance down to witness just how much had unraveled. On a particular evening, we gathered for dinner with friends. We laughed, sipped wine, and exchanged tales. As they journeyed home, David remarked, "You seem to laugh more with others these days than you do with me." I gazed through the window. I found myself at a loss for words. He inquired, "Is there something I'm overlooking, Carolyn?" And I deceived. Naturally, I was not truthful. "No, irraplia. I find myself weary. The demands of work have been quite substantial lately. Yet within me a barrier was disintegrating. Not due to ignorance but rather from understanding. And opted to keep it unspoken. On that night I gazed upon my reflection once more. Identical reflection.
Identical visage.
Yet I failed to perceive a woman enveloped in love. I failed to catch a glimpse of a woman consumed by desire. I observed an individual adrift in the chasm that separates two existences. One known yet unfeeling. One exhilarating yet precarious. And I murmured to my reflection, "What are you doing?" She remained silent. The deception I conveyed to David was not articulated through speech. It was in the manner I began to conceal my happiness. Concealing illumination. Concealing fragments of myself that were once solely his. When you deceive someone who has consistently placed their faith in you, you shatter more than just their trust. You shatter the narrative they constructed about your identity. And that is a treachery they fail to anticipate until the moment has passed. In the stillness that follows, when the hotel rooms have hushed, the emails vanish into oblivion. The husband's voice fades to silence. You confront the solitary figure you can no longer deceive. Yourself. It is at that moment that the true answer reveals itself. Jack and I met for one final encounter. Our paths crossed at the very same hotel. Silence reigns. There are no candles. Merely a pair of souls who had exhausted their dreams. He grasped my hand gently. He expressed, "I wish we'd crossed paths sooner." A smile graced my lips. Had we known, perhaps we would have chosen differently. For the simple reason that love had eluded us. Not quite. We were enveloped in a deep yearning. In remembrance. In flight. Yet, the truth is that reality presents a formidable challenge when it comes to constructing anything enduring. I confided in David completely. Not in a single moment. Yet amidst the warmth of tea. It was a Tuesday. He refrained from raising his voice. He remained composed. He posed a singular question. Was I ever enough? And for the first time I spoke the truth. You were my sole support, I said. Yet, I seemed to have lost the ability to stand independently. We chose not to part ways immediately. Yet the atmosphere surrounding us held a distinct quality. More slender. A thread that had finally snapped. Time slipped by week after week. The stillness within the walls intensified. We took the step of moving into separate rooms. Meals were shared. Yet thoughts remained unspoken. Our daughter came to visit. Yet she refrained from inquiring about the reason her parents no longer occupied the same space. Perhaps she was already aware. At times, individuals sense the fracture long before the words are ever uttered. A letter was penned for Jack. I did not send it through the mail. You brought back the essence of my true self. Yet, you revealed to me just how distant I had become from that girl. You failed to rescue me. Yet, you roused me from my slumber. For that, I will forever hold a sense of gratitude. That is all I wished to convey. Nothing further. Nothing short of that. I began to embark on lengthy strolls. Enrolled in a watercolor class. Acquired a typewriter from a thrift shop. I did not undergo a process of reinvention. I have recently begun to pay attention to the stillness, to the pain, to the woman I had forsaken for far too long. One morning, as the light poured onto the kitchen table, I prepared tea and spoke aloud. I hold no regrets about him. Yet, I find myself lamenting the fact that I did not pose that question to myself earlier. Do I feel joy? I am evolving. This was not a tale of romance. A moment of reckoning had arrived. A return. A recollection. In the space that lies between betrayal and forgiveness, nestled between the anonymity of a hotel room and the solace of a quiet home, I discovered a truth that I can embrace. And that, after all that has transpired, is sufficient.